I mean, it's changed, in multiple different ways. I don't think I ever thought that I would be this, like an activist in this way. I never thought I would be on a stage doing this and speaking about Palestine. I never thought I would be, doing a speech in front of 400,000 people in DC. I never thought any of those things. I lost a ton of friends, but they obviously weren't my friends to start with. So, things have changed, but I think for the better. I'm doing something that's going to, very hopefully free the world.
So let's talk about the friends, the speech, what's happened over the last few months. Saturday, October 7th. What do you remember about that day?
It's odd because I think at first I didn't think of much of it. I know that sounds crazy, but I was like, wow. I kind of, I can't believe that this has happened. And now I'm bracing myself for what's going to happen. And I think we always know that no matter what happens around Palestine, Gaza is the whipping boy.
Yeah.
So I was just bracing myself for what was going to happen, and I never thought that we would be 9 months into a genocide. But yeah, I mean, I just remember hearing about it and then just bracing myself, and a lot of conversations with friends about what they thought what the next steps were going to be.
The idea of us being here 9 months later, I guess I didn't see that either.
No.
And I remember after 9/11,
yeah.
I was in the UK. I'd started a new job. I was 23 or whatever I was. And I remember the second plane going into the building, and I was in the 9th floor of a tall building in the UK where people started fleeing out of. And one of the other journalists, a lot of media programs were being made, and one of them walked past the screen. I remember it vividly, and looked at the screen and said, "What have the Palestinians done now?" I remember it so vividly, before we even knew it was bin Laden, Al-Qaeda, etc. And that was the mindset, to go back to your point about the 80s, 90s, 2000s.
100%.
Palestinian terrorists, all the movies. And on that, and I knew at the time there's going to be a backlash and people are going to die in Afghanistan. And they did. Innocent people who had nothing to do with it. And Gaza, the same thing. I remember that weekend. I remember going on MSNBC Sunday night and saying, the people of Gaza, more than half of them are kids. This is already a place that's been besieged. And I remember thinking to myself, mowing the lawn, right? You heard this phrase, the Israelis go and mow the lawn.
Of course.
This is not mowing the lawn, what we've seen over
there. Or keeping them on a diet.
Not that the previous mowing the lawns were ever mowing the lawns, but that euphemism was for kind of short, sharp, kill a bunch of people and get out, versus this, which is just never ending. And it's never ending. It's been live streamed to our phones. By the brave Palestinian journalists on the ground in Gaza, who have risked their lives. Many of them have lost their lives at record numbers. And then on top of the brave people on the ground, you have the people in the West, quote unquote, who are using Mark Zuckerberg's platform and to a lesser degree, Elon Musk's platform to try and give context and analysis. And what I've enjoyed about you, and I'll be honest, I did not follow you closely until after October the 7th.
That's okay.
But what I see...
You're forgiven.
Thank you. What I've seen your stuff since October 7th is you are very particular about a word I love, and I say on my shows, and I said at MSNBC, I say at Al Jazeera, I say at Zateo, context.
Yes.
Right? The importance of providing, why is this happening?
Yes.
Not just what is happening.
I mean, I was doing that. I was trying to give context to Palestine and Palestinians for a really long time. When you try to give context, you get a lot of backlash. I mean, I was immediately trying to give context. I think I was giving context on October 7th. And if I had my phone, I would read you some of, actually, it would just bleep, 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 bleep. The DMs were not, too savory. But I think that's super important. People, I think, are just understanding what Palestinians and what other oppressed people and what, Arabs to a large extent have understood about Palestine for a long time. And I felt like I was educating people on things that I've had to educate myself on. Just because we're Palestinian doesn't mean we know all the history. We've had to learn all of these things in order to combat all of the things that, are thrown at us by Zionists.
One of the things, I was at MSNBC 3.5 years, and one of the things I was proud of is to be able to use that platform to get other voices on, right? People you don't see. We talk about Palestinians being dehumanized. The only way you can quote unquote rehumanize, and I hate the phraseology because Palestinians are humans, whether anyone wants to dehumanize them or not, is to allow people to speak, right, who have been silenced. And another thing I've noticed about your profile online is you use it to give other creators, other influencers, other people a platform and a voice, using your name and your reach.
I mean, I think that's the point of, much of the point of being a Palestinian in the diaspora is, I have this ability to speak, relatively freely. And I wanted to use that as, not just an amplifier, but like a bullhorn for, these people. I want to make sure that they have a place where they know that they can come to, give me their content and collaborate on content and make sure that people are understanding from Palestinians what's happening in Palestine. There's a lot of really phenomenal anti-Zionist Jews. There's a lot of really amazing historians. But, right now it's so important for the Palestinian context to finally be part of the message and for us to have a voice.
In a way I've never seen before.
In a way that I never believed that I would maybe see in my lifetime. Yeah.
Like you can now say Nakba.
Yeah, I know. And people
understand.
And you don't have to tell them what it is.
And that is, thanks Mark Zuckerberg. Maybe you didn't mean it that way, but.
I know. I mean, you can also say Zionist
we'll come to that in a moment. I do want to mention Meta, Instagram, and Zionism in a moment.
A live TV moment no one saw coming? Alana Hadid, sister of supermodel Gigi Hadid, goes off script on Mehdi Hassan's show, unleashing raw fury at what she calls crazy Zionists. What follows is not just a viral clip. It's a bold, unfiltered critique of Israel's policies and a rare celebrity stand against the mainstream narrative.
But what happened to you guys and your family, there comes a moment where the Israelis have a missile where they write the Hadid family names on.
Yeah.
That's insane.
I mean,
I don't know how you react to that.
Obviously that moment was really upsetting. And there's been other moments that have been incredibly upsetting. What I refocus on is not the fact that our names are on it, but that missile is going to murder Palestinians, and that as an American, my taxpayer money is funding that, and that's what I refocused on instead of oh my gosh, we're so important that they put I think that was for their own clout. And, it's really sad when during a genocide you're clout chasing.
I mean, the Israeli government official accounts
I know.
Out your sisters.
Oh,
which is
100%.
That's really sad. Your foreign government.
You have nothing better to do.
There are hostages still not free that you claim to care about. You're busy fighting.
That's what you're tweeting about? Like, give me a break.
It's insane. So let's just stick with the social media conversation because, as I say, it's a double-edged sword, social media. Right? I'm a parent. I say this to my kids. I say this to up-and-coming journalists. Social media, I wouldn't be where I am today. I would not be sitting on this stage in the United States with Zeta if I didn't have social
100%.
media. But at the same time, it's done a lot of damage to me. It's caused a lot of stress to me and my family. It's been a source of threats and harassment, all of that stuff. And it's been a source of huge misinformation and hate. And I look at what's happening since October 7th, and I look at what people with platforms have done. And it's been, I call October 7th a masks off moment, right? We've seen who a lot of people really are, especially prominent people. And there's kind of three people. There's the people who have used their platforms for good, to call out a genocide, to call out starvation. There are people who've just stayed silent.
Yeah.
And then there's the worst group of people, obviously, the people who have just used it to support a genocide.
Yeah.
And I wonder, as someone who, I'll put this loosely, moves in some of these circles maybe, what do you make of celebrities who are not just clout chasing, but literally coming and going out, whether it's your Amy Schumer or your Sarah Silverman, whoever it is, just saying genocidal shit publicly. Michael Rappaport says some insane stuff.
Insane stuff. But people, Zionists love him
because... The last time I liked Michael Rappaport, he was in Friends.
Oh, was he? I don't even remember that.
In some small role. But I just wonder what you think about, in that first group, the people who have spoken out.
Yeah.
A lot of them have suffered career consequences.
100%.
You look at someone like Melissa Barrera.
Susan Sarandon.
You look at a bunch of people who have taken a hit. And people like Melissa have just have carried on. They haven't shrunk away.
Yeah.
If Scream 18 doesn't get made, I'm sure the world will survive. But I was talking to a Hollywood celebrity recently who has taken a position on this, and he said to me, I will carry on taking this position because ultimately I'm going to be judged by history.
100%.
And that's where we are, right? This is a historic moment.
That's what boggles my mind when it comes to, our government and representatives. Like, history is going to remember this, and do you really think that they're going to be looking at you kindly? Joe Biden is called Genocide Joe. I don't think that's going away. I believe that will be in textbooks. And so I think that these people obviously are more concerned about their paychecks now than they are,
I think it's
future.
Worse than paychecks. I think some of them believe this stuff. They think Palestinians are not human. They're animals. They're all terrorists. They deserve what they get. I think a lot of them are actually just racist.
Oh, 100%. I think that there are. But I also think that there are definitely people who are like, I'd rather just not quite look at the sun yet. You can't, you can't cover the sun with your thumb forever. I think that they're just, covering the sun with their thumb and hoping that, they're not going to get burnt.
In an industry where towing the line is often the safest route, Ilana Hadid's outburst was more than a headline. It was a rebellion. She didn't just call out Israeli aggression. She shattered the unspoken rule that celebrities must stay politically neutral or risk their careers. She dared to use language that ripped through the polite PR veil Hollywood hides behind and turned a primetime interview into a moment of unapologetic defiance. And the backlash, immediate and brutal. But here's the thing, she knew exactly what she was doing. Her words weren't reckless, they were intentional. She understood the stakes, the cameras, the silence of her peers, and she still chose to speak up.
I mean, sure. Of course, I've been a little bit.
What's it like just suddenly realizing in the middle of this tragedy, you have a voice, you have a platform, not just a social media platform, you literally spoke in front of 400,000 people.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Here in Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
What was that like?
Well, that was like my first major speech. That was like kind of like my first speech.
So I wrote a book about speeches. And one of the pieces of advice I give is when you start public speaking, start in front of 5 or 10 people. You did not take that advice. You started in front of 400,000 people.
Yeah, I mean, I imagined there were only 10 people there, but...
I actually think, before we chat about it, I think we can play a clip of you.
Oh, God.
Let's have a watch.
I don't know if I watched this.
The brutality of this genocide, occupation, and the ongoing Nakba by the state of Israel have been laid in front of the world, and the people have spoken. We have flooded the streets, taken to social media, called our representatives, boycotted, shut down bridges, streets, and businesses, and still our government and media are complicit. This is not democracy. President Biden, we the people demand to be heard. We the people demand justice. We the people demand liberation. We the people demand an end to a genocide and an end to a brutal occupation of Palestine.
Yeah, I mean, you missed my favorite part of the speech was when I said, I condemn Israel. That's my favorite part.
Okay.
I said it twice, actually.
But I'm sure you said 10 times.
Yeah.
And then Hamas first, right? To get permission to be able to say that.
Yeah.
Is it amazing, though? I mean, I came of age politically. I got radicalized. And I say that like in a political way.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah. I don't mean radicalized in that way, but radicalized politically.
Yeah.
You have to say that as a Muslim. You have to be like, hi to the FBI guy in the audience. In 2003, in the Iraq War, right? I was 22, 23 years old. I was a young researcher in TV in London, and I marched against the Iraq War. Those were huge crowds. Yeah. Up until Gaza, it was the greatest war crime of my lifetime, was the invasion of Iraq. And up until Gaza, those were the biggest crowds we had seen globally in my lifetime.
Yeah.
And now you have, as we discussed earlier in the show, you now have people showing up to protests, understanding what Nakba means, not just going online, but turning up in the streets.
Yeah, I mean, I was just shocked. I mean, I knew that there was going to be a huge turnout, but 400,000 people coming out for Palestine, like, it was something, it still makes me kind of emotional now to see the amount of people that are coming out for Palestine is just not something I knew would happen in my lifetime, in my father's lifetime. You know, for my family to get to see this is just like mind-blowing.
And here is a phrase that will get me and us in trouble, but we should say it.
Do it.
It's a global intifada.
It is. It is a global intifada.
It is a shaking off. It is an uprising. It is people in the streets. And, you know, people lose their minds when you talk in this way. I went on Piers Morgan's show for my sins.
Oh, yeah.
A few weeks ago.
I know. I was going to ask you about that. What have you done?
What have I done? I was on last week talking about something else.
Yeah, I saw it.
But I was on a few weeks ago talking about Palestine.
Yes.
And, he's obsessed, And
Oh, yeah.
I'm the only guest I think he's never asked, have you condemned Hamas at the beginning? But we got into discussion, it was during the campus protest, at the peak of the campus protest. And this word intifada was obviously. And I said, did you know, Piers, that if you go to the US Holocaust Memorial Museum's website in Arabic, the page on the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising is called the Warsaw Ghetto Intifada.
Of course.
So were the Jews in Warsaw, were they Hamas? And that went viral, and I'll tell you what happened. A bunch of people, actually a Jewish journalist friend of mine who I've known for years, sent me a text.
Really?
And he said, up until now, I defended you, but you're clearly an anti-Semite.
I thought it was going to be a different...
10 o'clock at night. Up until now, I haven't spoken to him at all since October 7th. Not a good friend, someone I know from the industry. He said, but you're an anti-Semite.
Yeah.
It's clear to me. No context, don't know what I did, but I had to put two and two together. There's a viral clip this evening on social media of me saying intifada is not inherently anti-Semitic. It's a totally legitimate Arabic word referring to uprising. And I thought about that, and then I thought about what you said a moment ago about losing friends over this.
Yeah.
Again, it's not just a mass soft moment for kind of celebrities and what they think about politics, but about our relationships.
Oh, yeah.
I think in a way that even 9/11 was not, there's a way that people have kind of lost their minds in many ways, and people are, I don't know what the phrase is, just going crazy at each other, really for no reason sometimes.
Well, it's radicalized liberal Zionists as well, like, people who are like, peace and we should all get along, two-state solution. Those people have become like, kill them all people. I've had a lot of friends say similar things to what your friend said, like, I've defended you. And, my response to that is, if you have to defend me, you're in the wrong room. Well said. Seriously, like, why are you in a room with a bunch of people you have to defend me to? You should be in a room with people who understand, what's going on. And obviously, if that's the room you want to be in, then I don't think I want to be there with you.
Alana Hadid didn't stumble. She snapped. In a moment that instantly went viral, she unleashed a scathing critique of Zionist violence, labeling it in no uncertain terms. It wasn't rehearsed, and it definitely wasn't polished, but it was raw, real, and electrifying. Her outburst cut through the usual talking points and forced the audience, and Mehdi Hassan himself, to sit up. This wasn't just another celebrity speaking out. It was a direct challenge to the sanitized, one-sided narratives that dominate mainstream coverage of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict.
There's a room on Wednesday that's going to be filled with American lawmakers, and they're going to be applauding a man who the ICC chief prosecutor has requested an arrest warrant.
Yeah.
This coming Wednesday, Benjamin Netanyahu will be here in DC. This is a guy who has been on the scene for decades, has been accused of war crimes multiple times over the decades. Since October 7th, every human rights group in the world has pretty much come out and said Israel is guilty of war crimes on Netanyahu's watch. The ICC chief prosecutor has requested an arrest warrant for Benjamin Netanyahu, a reminder that arrest warrant came after he was given advice by a man named Theodore Meron, who is a 94-year-old Holocaust survivor who was once Israel's ambassador to the United Nations. He says, arrest Netanyahu. And this guy's going to get, I don't know how many standing ovations.
The last time he came, it was like one of the longest standing ovations.
He comes a lot. He's come, I think, 3 times already.
They love giving him standing ovations.
And the Democrats co-signed on the invitation. This is the insane world we live in. Chuck Schumer gave a speech saying Netanyahu's an obstacle to peace. He should be gone. But hey, why don't you come visit us?
Well, because the scapegoating didn't work. They were trying to scapegoat him.
They were trying to nudge him.
Yeah, they were like, "Oh, it's all Netanyahu." We need a moderate
Zionist there dropping the bombs, not the extreme Zionists.
They're like, let's push this all on Netanyahu, and he's a Yahoo, and let's it's all him. And then they were like, okay, maybe this will work. Maybe he'll get out, and then we can keep our precious state. And it didn't work, and so they were like, they had to kind of rein him back in so they could keep their money.
Has that been a slogan at protest? Netanyahu, he's a Yahoo?
No, I don't know, but I'm going to start.
I think we could have something there. From the river to the sea, Netanyahu is a Yahoo. I'm coining it now. Yours. But on a serious note, I do think it is a huge mistake for supporters of Israel. I think they know it. I think quote-unquote liberal Zionists know what a bad move it is to have Netanyahu, who's a super unpopular politician. Nobody likes Netanyahu in America apart from the House GOP.
Yeah.
And he's turning up to speak to remind everybody, almost to rub people's faces in it, that yes, you can do an arrest warrant request for me.
Yeah.
Yes, I can kill 40,000 people, including 15,000 kids, but I'll still be welcomed and applauded. And I think that's going to piss off a lot of ordinary Americans who don't follow this stuff closely.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of people who really just don't understand the ramifications of what that is. They're like, oh, well, he's a world leader.
Yeah. True.
That's
some dodgy world.
Yeah, exactly.
I think it's fair to say.
Our own president is supporting this genocide, and we have him speak to us all the time. So.
Yes. And he's going to be meeting with Netanyahu, having not met with him up until this point.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Netanyahu, his longevity is amazing. As Jon Stewart once pointed out on The Daily Show, he doesn't age. He looks the same as he did in 2002 when he came to DC to tell everyone to invade Iraq.
Yeah.
And that worked out so well.
Caught in the crossfire, Mehdi Hasan found himself walking a tightrope between journalistic objectivity and the raw emotions surging through the conversation. He's no stranger to tough interviews, but this wasn't just a debate. It was an eruption. As Alana doubled down, Hasan tried to steer the conversation back to neutral ground. But in doing so, he exposed the limitations of traditional media formats when faced with voices that refused to be filtered. It was a collision of raw truth and media decorum, and for once, the unfiltered voice wasn't drowned out.
Meta right now is going through a review and saying that Zionism could be added, thanks to a lot of lobbying from groups like I assume ADL and AJC and others, that Zionism is now going to be, I don't know what the exact details are, they haven't been completely clear, but it could be one of the words that gets you banned or struck off or treated as a hate speech.
I think they've already added it. That is like part of the practices of Meta now. Like they are targeting people who are using the word Zionism. They say it's very nebulous, like what the actual way that you use it that's okay, and the way, like, I guess it's like, if I love Zionists, then you can say on.
I mean, personally, I don't know if you agree with me. I do think there is a debate to be had about how you use it, right? I don't know if Facebook has defined it.
Yeah.
But like, if you're saying I'm opposed to Zionism, the ethnic cleansing that removed Palestinian people from their land, obviously you should be able to say that. I think if you do go scream at a random Jewish person on the street, hey, Zio, then you could argue that's hate speech, right? And obviously people don't understand what Zionism is. It's a political ideology. It is not Judaism, right?
100%.
I know some people in the Jewish community want to claim it's the same. It's not the same.
No.
A history teacher is not the same. And I'll always remember there's a former British member of parliament called Louise Mensch.
Yeah.
Who's a little bit odd. And she was tweeting once, anyone who comes on my timeline, she was tweeting on Twitter.
Okay.
And she goes, anyone who comes on my timeline and says Zionism, they're banned, blocked immediately. And someone said, what about Theodore Herzl? Okay. And she said, him as well. Which I thought was ironic, which tells you that we need a little bit of education.
Yeah, but I mean, don't take it from me what, Zionism is. Talk to an anti-Zionist.
Yeah, but now the House of Representatives that's hosting Netanyahu has passed a resolution saying anti-Zionism is anti-Semitism.
Yes.
Which is, absurd in and of itself, but what I find so offensive is, and as speaking to a Palestinian American, you're basically telling Palestinian Americans that not only do you have to give up your land, rights, you have to be okay approving of the ideology that did that.
Yeah, and you have to be, you can't talk about it. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I mean, that's what, we've been dealing with for a long time. So I think Palestinians weren't like, ooh, shock. That's the kind of, silencing that we've always had. It's just never been, passed by Congress.
I mean, Palestinians, in my view, are the original victims. If cancel culture exists, it's pro-Palestinian on campus, in the media, in Congress.
Canary mission.
But apparently the free speech warriors go quiet when it comes to standing up for Palestinians. So, on that note, you are making lots of noise, not just on social media, but in the space of films and filmmaking.
I'm trying.
You are now part of this amazing new endeavor. Tell us about your amazing new endeavor, the name, what it's about, what the goal is. Yeah,
it's called Watermelon Pictures. It's very exciting.
Round of applause.
Yeah, thank you. I can't really take credit for it. I'm the creative director, but it was started by two amazing brothers, Hamza and Badia Ali, who are Palestinians, whose father and uncle started a Palestinian-led distribution company out of Chicago in 1976, which, obviously was pretty groundbreaking. And they had been wanting to, start something that was supporting not just Palestinian films, but, films of silenced voices. And so we've focused on Palestine now because obviously that's something that we are invested in. But, we are in production in a lot of films that, are going to highlight not just the history, not just the, the horror of what's happened to Palestinians, but, love stories and, romantic comedies and sitcoms and all the kind of things that you need to know.
That you never see?
Yeah, the full spectrum. And I think that people just need the full spectrum of Palestinian life.
I mean, the best way to get across your message is through storytelling.
You would watch that, right?
I would watch it. I mean, storytelling for me is key. I always tell the story, and I don't know if people have heard me tell the story before in other venues, but when I worked at Channel 4 in the UK, I was a commissioning editor back in the day, and Channel 4 is a very progressive, seen as liberal channel, and they had done a show called Undercover Mosque, which was a documentary series where they went into British mosques and they filmed the imam saying something crazy. This is like at the height of the war on terror. And it's look at these extremists. And a lot of Muslims protested outside Channel 4 saying this is unfair, this is selective editing, some of these mosques aren't representative of the British Muslim community, etc., etc. There was a big fight going on. And Channel 4, the bosses at Channel 4 felt a little guilty because we're supposed to be the progressive, multicultural channel. And I remember I was this junior young person at Channel and I got called into the bosses.
Oh, God.
Like, you're a Muslim. Come in the office.
Hey.
What do we do? They're like, what do we do? They're like, we do. And Channel 4 actually did really good Hajj coverage. And one of the other people went out and filmed the Hajj.
That's amazing.
We do the Hajj coverage and Muslims aren't happy with us. Should we do more Hajj coverage? And I was like, and I said, it's once a year. What I said to them was, it's great you do the Hajj coverage. I'm glad. But as long as you just see people through one prism, it's a problem, right? If 100%. You just see Palestinians through the prism of the conflict, that's not real. Yeah. If you just see Muslims as religious people, that's not real either. And the point I made at the time, Channel 4 was famous for having property shows. They were property shows, and they had game shows, they had quiz shows. They had, what was it, 15 to 1, all these other ones, I can't remember the one. And I said at the time to the boss, I said, how come there are no Muslims on your property shows or your quiz shows? Muslims buy houses. Muslims like quizzes. Right? How come we only ever see... We do. Anyone who knows, I like to play games. Board games. Some people in this audience have lost to me in board games. I'm just saying. But the point is that this is the problem where we have normalized the view of Muslims and Arabs and brown people
100%.
Only through certain prisms. You began the conversation reminding, as when you were growing up, as Palestinians and terrorists. They're the people on Pan Am flight, whatever it is. And now you have this opportunity. And I, in my own small way, not through not through a filmmaking company, but through news and current affairs, is to be able to platform different voices. Say, you know what? We actually do different things.
Yes, and we can be funny too. Apparently, or maybe, I don't know.
So I did this podcast.
Yeah, to show that you're funny.
Not me. No, I have resting angry Muslim face.
That's actually really good.
When I started doing interviews. I came in front of the camera in 2012. I was behind the scenes. And the producer in my ear, who's actually the producer in my ear right now.
Oh, really?
I've known him for over a decade. And he said to me, when the camera cuts to you, you look very angry. And I said, that's my paying attention face.
Yeah.
And for years, I just thought I was paying attention.
Yeah.
Apparently, people thought I was trying to bite their head.
Well, that's probably because you did afterwards.
But anyway, no, but genuinely, we did start this podcast, We're Not Kidding, because I thought people like Bassem Youssef, and we've had Amanda Seales, and we've had a bunch of interesting people, and we got some other great guests coming up. But we just thought the idea of, let's have conversations about serious stuff, but it doesn't always have to be through the prism of seriousness and serious people.
Well, I just want to say thank you, because honestly, the media has been, a source of a lot of pain during this, this time, and to be able to watch something like this and be a part of Zeteo that is, funny and fun and informational and, educational has been really amazing. So
Alana Hadid doesn't just speak out, she disrupts the narrative. She challenges the idea that empathy for Palestinians is somehow dangerous or divisive, asking a question too many shy away from. Since when did basic compassion become controversial? Her voice breaks through the calculated silence, forcing uncomfortable truths into the spotlight. And let's be real, this isn't about politics for her. It's about humanity. It's about calling injustice what it is. Even when the cost is high, in an industry that thrives on safe takes and sanitized statements, Hadid's honesty feels like a lightning bolt, because in today's climate, caring out loud is a radical act.
You briefly spoke about visiting Palestine for the first time. And as a Palestinian who has never been to Palestine yet, we often engage in conversations about Palestine in the context of suffering and expulsion and apartheid, and the list goes on. So what would you tell people who have never been to Palestine about your experience visiting?
Oh, you're going to make me cry. I mean, the minute I stepped foot in Palestine, I felt like I was home. Woo, you got me on that one. It is like, you know, I think every Palestinian, every person who's been around a Palestinian knows how like inviting Palestinians are, you know, and giving. They would, you know, literally give you the shirt off their back. They would feed you more than you want to eat. And that's what Palestine is. It's community. You know, I remember one of the times I was there, I saw a car accident happen on the street, you know, just like, you know, a fender bender, and everyone on the street just stopped to try to help to, you know, to redirect traffic, to make sure that the people in the car were okay. And it's, you know, you don't see that anywhere else in the world where people are going to stop their day in order to make sure that these people are okay. And it's because we've been taking care of ourselves for so long that we take care of each other. And so it's just the most communal, beautiful place in the world. And it's not beyond me that I was able to experience Palestine and so many Palestinians weren't. It's, you know, I have reverence for the fact that I used my, you know, American white privilege in order to go there. But I feel so proud that I was able to go before, you know, I will be able to go back when it's free. But I hope that you get to experience it because it's like nothing else.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That was, yes.
What was it like for you when you were in Ramallah? I didn't get to ask you that.
It was a little insane.
Yeah.
It was a little insane. It was great. People lovely, but it's also driving there is
yeah.
a little
You
crazy.
have to have, you know, strong continence to drive.
Also, it's so beautiful what you said. You said, when I went to Palestine, I felt like I was home.
Immediately.
And the troublemaker in me wants to say to you that, given your mother's here, how'd you feel when you went to Ireland?
I also felt like I was home.
Just checking. Just checking. All right.
The fallout was swift. Headlines, hate comments, online smear campaigns, you name it. Alana Hadid found herself in the eye of a storm. But instead of walking it back, she stood her ground. She reminded the world that silence, especially from those with influence, is a choice. And in times of injustice, it's the wrong one. Her message was clear. If telling the truth makes you a target, then maybe it's time more people became targets. Because the fight for justice isn't clean, and it's definitely not comfortable. But voices like Hadid's, they're changing the game, and they're not going away.